Do you want to vibe code a production SaaS that people can actually pay you for but don't know where to start? I did this all in a weekend, so I'm going to tell you exactly how I did it as well as the 10 most important lessons I learned along the way. So this is Sift. It's basically an AI email digest app on whatever cadence you prefer. It delivers a sourced digest to your email inbox in this nice format here. Pretty long, but there is a TLDR at the very top here. You tell it which topics you're interested in and how you want it to talk to you about that topic. Do you want a big picture, a balance, or technical focus? Separate from topics is the goals, and the AI uses the goals to make the digest more actionable. Then going down to the writing style, you can get the quick read, which is just a couple of bullet points, and the in-depth, which you just saw. It's very lengthy. So if you're looking to become an expert on something really quick, you might use the in-depth mode. You can change the schedule, the time zone, you get to see the next delivery, and you can generate the digest now to test it out, make sure it's the tone you want and the length you want. Users can also delete their data here. You can go to this digest tab and see all of your previous digests. This timestamp is just how long it took to generate. Here's the historical digest, a list of sources at the bottom. Here's the billing management page where you can manage your subscription or cancel it. Here's how people request refunds. Going back to the landing page here, just to show you a little more here, we have the nice preview of both of the writing styles. Here's the pricing. Zoom out here. So we have a free forever version, which is you're limited to topics, limited to how many on-demand generations you have. You can't do daily, right? You can only do weekly at the most frequent, and only the quick reading style. So only that couple of bullets. We're only using Haiku for this, so it's like the cheaper large language model. Now the paid plan is $8.25 a month. If you pay for it yearly, you want to always give users the option to pay yearly, even if only a small percent do. So the pro plan is what I just showed you. I have all those topics and goals preloaded. You can do daily deliveries, get the full digest history, and this is where you unlock that in-depth style that uses Claude Sonnet, so a little bit more of the middle of the road model in terms of price and performance. And I also included this elite $79 a month plan, which is not implemented yet, but I'm using it, number one, as a price anchor, and number two is a kind of roadmap to show what could be possible if this takes off. I can add these functionalities later. Then I have some FAQ on the very bottom, and this might be a question that you guys have. What makes this different from other AI tools? Most AI writing sounds like AI writing. We spend a lot of time to basically make it not sound like AI, right? I refined this prompt many times. The goal is that you genuinely can't tell it was written by an AI. So can't you just use ChatGPT for this? Yeah, you totally could, right? But that involves you going into another tool. There's other competitors to this, and basically what they do is they pre-process a library of articles and feed you the ones that fit based on your interests. So with Sift, nothing is pre-canned. It's all completely based on whatever topics and goals you say you're interested in. There's a refund policy. Frankly, if anyone said they don't like it at any point, I probably just refund them, because at this point my reputation is a lot more important than $8 a month or whatever. People can cancel anytime. The data privacy part is something I focused a lot on, and it's a big critique of vibe coded applications. So we have a disclaimer here telling people how we store their data, how we use their email, and that we don't sell the data, share it with anyone, or use it to train AI models. We also have a full privacy policy in terms of service, and it tells you about the different services we use, like Google for authentication, how billing's handled, how your data is stored in Supabase, and that you can request your deletion at any time. And maybe that's the first lesson learned here, is you need to have a privacy policy in terms of service for any public-facing application. So here's how I built this thing. It was basically a couple of sessions in Claude Code. I used the VS Code extension here, and this was a big learning experience for me as far as taking this from something just running locally to something that other people depend on. So one of the criticisms I see a lot and get a lot online is that this isn't a real production grade application. So let's dive into that. So production grade can mean a couple of things. It can mean it in the functional sense, as in other people are using it. If it breaks, there's some real world impact there. And there's another version of production, which is like enterprise SRE, or site reliability engineer grade, which a lot of people like in bad faith point to and say your vibe coded app doesn't meet these standards, therefore it's not valid, good enough, etc. But you really do not need enterprise level, configuration to start selling a micro SaaS. If you can collect people's money and keep their data secure, you're good to find product market fit. Everything else you can bolt on later if it matters. So where SIFT clears the bar in the production software area is it has authentication. We use Google Auth to log people in. We use a third party for payments, right? We just use Stripe, so we don't have to write any of that code or learn how to secure any of that data. It goes right to Stripe. We never see any of it. The database was a very important part, so we decided to go with a Postgres database in Supabase, and we're enforcing row level security, which I'll get into later. We have some rate limiting so that people can't bamboozle the system and send 1 billion digests to their email in a second or something. The secrets are handled securely, which is very important. So our env variables, which you may know about, right, if you've been coding or vibe coding for a little while now, we store these directly in Vercel, so no longer in the code, just in Vercel. So that means, yeah, they're never committed, basically. It obviously needs to be HTTPS and some other things. Basically, if it breaks, paying users miss digests. That's a production app. Where it falls short, rather, not falls apart, Jesus, is it has no error monitoring. So if something breaks or goes bump in the night, I have to get an email about it, or like I have to log in and fix it, basically. You see a lot of these are about that. Uptime monitoring, there's no status page, health page, or anything like that. AI observability is definitely a shortcoming. I generate the digests and send them out automatically, and there's not much visibility into that. As far as testing goes, we have a basic playwright testing suite, but it's light, right? It's not enterprise grade by a mile. And for anything regarding the networking, I think this is a flip of the switch on Vercel, which I have not enabled yet. Incident response, it's all up to me, right? If it goes down, I need to be the one to fix it, and I don't have a run book currently to do that. Now it's again very simple micro SaaS, but again that's why it falls short for this standard of an enterprise production grade app. But there's no load testing. It's untested at volume. The logs fall off, and compliance. I'm sure there's some compliance standards I'm not exactly meeting here just by vibe coding this thing. So when I started building this in Claude Code, one of the first things I did was a competitor analysis, and I realized, oh crap, there's a lot of other tools doing AI email digests. There's specific tools that do it, just that's their main function, and also ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. Google, right, Gemini, is also doing features just like this, but I wanted to ship it anyway because number one, it's a learning experience for me, and number two, because there's basically no original ideas anymore anyway, and since everyone can vibe code anything in a weekend, it really comes down more to taste and design, so that's what I was shooting for with this app. I wanted the real differentiation for this thing to be, again, the design, but also that it doesn't sound like AI writing. I feel like people are getting so sick of AI writing that things are flipping in the complete opposite direction. We would rather a poorly worded email than to read an AI written email. So a lot of time and attention went into refining and testing the prompt to make sure it never says anything like, it's not just X, it's Y. And it'll just gives the findings with sources. One thing Alex Hormozy said is, if you can say it in less words, do it. And I included that in the prompt. So yeah, that's tip number 3. Sorry, I skipped numbering the last one as 2, but for the 2 writing styles, so this is tip number 4, I really wanted to optimize the token usage for this because $8 a month, it sounds like a lot for something that's so simple, but actually when you look at the API costs of researching and writing with Claude Sonnet, and if you're sending something once a day, the $8 a month is actually a good deal. And the reason why is, if we look at a past in-depth digest, obviously it's really long, but it also needs to look through all of these sources, right? It needs to look through all these different YouTube videos, all these different blog posts, etc. And it costs a lot of tokens to do that, which is why in the quick read version, we are only using Anthropic's Haiku model, so the cheaper, faster model. The in-depth model we use, or for the in-depth writing style, we use a more powerful AI model that's Claude Sonnet. So yeah, it costs about 40 cents per in-depth digest and 20 cents per quick read digest. I spent a little bit of time optimizing it, but I could probably do more. So that's my lesson number 4, is to optimize your token costs by doing something creative, right? Maybe you can have Haiku search the web and then Sonnet write the digest itself. Yeah, I first had Haiku write the in-depth digest and it was just so bad. So yeah, lesson learned there. Lesson number 5 is I actually renamed this in the middle of making it. So it was originally called Digester, but I thought that was kind of gross, so I renamed it Sift, like sifting through a pile of junk. So I don't know, the name doesn't really matter is what I'm trying to say. Lesson number 6 is the tech stack I used to build this is the reason why I wanted to build it. The learning how to connect everything together was the reason I wanted to build this. So we use Google for the sign-in, which means that we never have to store passwords anywhere or anything like that, which I wouldn't be comfortable doing anyway. Using Supabase for the database, Stripe for payments. So again, we don't have to process any credit card information or store it or anything like that. Yeah, 9 times out of 10 when you're thinking of building XYZ thing, there's already a more highly managed service out there that you can use, like the ones I'm mentioning. I use Anthropic API, right? I'm not trying to build my own thing with LangChain or anything like that. As far as the Google login goes, you only want to grant your app the minimal set of permissions it needs. Basically, when you're creating the OAuth client here, you want to just grant it only email, profile, and you basically only want to grant it the minimal amount of scope necessary. You don't want to ask for Drive or Gmail access to, because it'll trigger some additional authentication on your side. So that was lesson number 7. Lesson number 8, when people come in here and they set up their delivery schedule, this all has to be stored in the database, and it sets up a cron job basically that fires every time the user has configured it. That part is not so hard, but there's a lot of things interacting here that the Claude can get confused. I can get confused trying to connect it all, because it does this research, write, humanize, review, email chain across different time zones. And what happens if you're in today and you want the email, you set it up here, does it make sense that it's sending it to you today, or should it send it tomorrow? Those types of small things are easy to get wrong. You really have to think about every little situation that someone can use your app. Frankly, you can have AI write the tests for this type of thing, but AI will frequently write tests that it knows it will pass. So yeah, manual testing is still a big part of when you're vibe coding apps. That said, moving on to lesson number 9 was I actually reduced the scope of this app because it was too hard for me to test and make sure everything was going right with. So originally what I had planned was this elite tier that you see here was going to be for a team type workspace. So one admin sets up the digest for many different people, and it sends the same digest to that team of people. The issue being, it was too complicated for me to figure out how all the different accounts interacted and the permissions and who could do what, and it was a pain to test, and I'm like, I don't want to set up 6 sample accounts to do this also. What I decided in the end is just to make the elite tier something simpler, audio digest or AI images in the digest or an API access. So that was the compromise I made there. I deleted the whole team and workspace part of this app in the middle of building it. And lesson number 10 is you really need to build observability into your app as soon as possible. I could not figure out what the heck was going wrong with any of my digests or any of the API calls because I had no observability or metrics in here. So in my admin dashboard that I have set only for my admin account, I can masquerade as these different personas. I can see trends of new signups. I can see if anything failed, right? The failure rate of digests. I can see the different users. I can delete them from the system, delete them from the database. This doesn't yet refund them the money. I have to go into Stripe and manually refund them, but that would be an enhancement if enough people use this. That becomes a bottleneck. And also the generation log that I can see what was generated, what the style was, what if people chose a technical or big picture or balanced perspective for their topics. That way I can troubleshoot what happens when it goes wrong. Here's a failed one. I should have a message here. Failed during researching. The operation was aborted due to timeout. So I've since fixed that issue, but yeah, those rich error messages really help. Also, as far as just filtering for stuff that succeeded and failed, yeah, filters help a lot. So just think ahead of what you might want to know about your app, right? And that is the 10th and final lesson. Feel free to try this for free if you want. It's at sift.scalingsidekick.com. And yeah, let me know what you think. If it's a buggy mess and you hate it, let me know. If it's the best thing ever, please let me know. This was a learning experience for me. I do have experience in a software company and an insurance company on the infrastructure side of things, so more focused on cloud and on-premises infrastructure that actually hosts the application itself, not so much the application side. So yeah, definitely some things could be improved on here, I'm sure. So yeah, basically it was just a natural language iteration as far as actually creating the app in Claude Code. I would just dictate, oh, this button doesn't work, this is too high, this is too big, this is too small, this doesn't work. And it was just a very like caveman approach to using Claude Code to build this. I forgot to mention row level security. So even though my app enforces security at the API route level, level, I decided to implement row level security as a defense in depth mechanism. And to do that, you can ask Claude Code to, you can go to this docs page for Supabase, tell it to install Supabase skills. You tell Claude Code to install these Supabase skills, and it'll make it easier to discover and do things more accurately and efficiently. So you can ask Claude Code to implement row level security in your database. So yeah, let me know what you're working on in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.